Hey friends. So, one of the things that I've had some time to do over the last week and a half, really more the last couple of days, is to do a little reading in a book, not on my phone, not on my iPad. And I picked up Chögyam Trungpa's True Perception, which is a book. It's called The Path of Dharma Art. And it's basically Chögyam Trungpa's theory of art, or I don't know if theory is the right word. It's a book about the practice of art and how art emerges and the link between the creative process and the spiritual impulse. And all I read was I read the introduction, and then I read like the first little essay. And it was, I can already tell, especially with me being kind of interested and already in the practice of what I'm kind of calling creative spirituality, this is going to be a huge influence, because it's no surprise that Madeline has a connection to Trungpa Rinpoche and that there's a kind of kinship there. Because it's like it's like this groundedness. There's something grounding about. So like one of the things he writes is, if you want to make art, you have to start with your basic life conditions. You start with your clothes, cooking your food, keeping your household, keep maintaining your body, what we eat, what we consume. And I remember this about the previous book of his that I read. There's a sense in which it's just very grounded in reality. It's not a spiritual path, or he's not a spiritual teacher whose head is in the clouds a lot of the time. He's a really feet on the ground. Here's where to start looking kind of philosophy of life. And so hearing that articulated in a creative context was just really inspiring, and really I was like, okay. It was kind of like that feeling of like, oh, I've got another reliable foothold for this, what I would call my developing practice, and which is already my path, but which I'm more and more leaning into, a teaching model. How can I? Are there principles that I'm distilling from my creative life? Yes, that I could share and that could be helpful to other people. So it's really fun to come across somebody who's done this work on an incredibly deep level. And the thing that struck me most, and the thing that really resonates, it actually sort of like sent a ripple through my awareness of just looking at everything I've ever done creatively, and the processes involved, and the relationships involved, and the circumstances, and ultimately the products that we created. What was encapsulated in the product. This comment of his sent it's like this penetrating gaze through all of that, because he simply said, towards the end of this very short essay, he says, Dharma art is what he calls spiritual art. Dharma art is simply the action of non-aggression. And I was like, wow, because then he talks a bit about how what we do in the pursuit of inspiration, how we, and it really made me reflect and think, what do I do with inspiration? What is inspiration? What do I think it is? What do I consider it to be? When I receive a stroke of inspiration, what do I do with it? And what is my intention? What is my immediate sense of purpose surrounding that stroke of inspiration? Because it's really, what he talks about is it's really easy to want to capture strokes of inspiration and get them down on paper and make sure we don't lose them. And then he talks about really some really meticulous processes of creation where artists might have an elaborate method for how they create their work. Stages, steps, processes, etc. But all of that, it's very easy to miss in all of that if our underlying intention isn't really both clear to us and really at peace with the world, then it almost doesn't matter what our process is. Our process is going to result in action and art that promotes discord. One of the things he said in his previous book that really struck me was, unless we can clean up our own side of the street, unless we really are willing to get to the heart of who we are and what we're about, and look at all our patterns, look at all of our habits, unless we're willing to do that, we're going to create chaos in the world. Doesn't matter if we go out and start a foundation and give money to charity and help, it doesn't matter how well intentioned our actions are or how directly we engage with. I mean, it's not that stuff doesn't matter. It's just that our underlying intention ultimately is putting its fingerprint all over everything. And the fingerprint, this kind of psychic, spiritual fingerprint, or our signature, is ultimately like the DNA of our action. So the action might externally look like it's doing one thing, but if the DNA of the action is something else, we can't separate. We will never be able to extract the tension that is within us from the action that we take in the world. It's simply not possible. It is encoded. This universe captures everything. And that's a big thing to realize. That's a big thing to realize. So, again, it just puts me right back into it points my gaze right back into my own life and my own practice. And really feeling into what do I really intend what do I really intend in my day-to-day life? What do I really intend when I'm on vacation? What happens to my intentions? Where's my head? What am I at? What am I after? What's my psychic space? And then, of course, in a creative context, where am I coming from? Because I look at a lot of things I've done in the past, and I can see it's not that there was no value in them. There was plenty of value in them, and they were part of my formation as an artist. But I can see very clearly why I had to move on, because there's a kind of underlying mismatch in the intention. It's not so much in the execution. Well, the execution, at least in a lot of cases, was quite good, but the intention, that's where it all happens. So anyway, that's what showed up today. Big stuff. Very grateful to have found this book. And I'll keep updating you on this journey. Much love. Appreciate you. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.